Timestamps can be found in the description. I don't know how to truly put into words what I just watched, but today we are reviewing Deadstream. Deadstream is a Shudder original and can be found there, surprisingly enough. I was going into this based off of a community I follow for found flicks, and they were saying that this movie's a gaggle of laughs and has some pretty good scares throughout it. Man, they hit some of it. They hit. I genuinely laughed a couple of times during this film, but man, it is a strange thing to kind of recommend. Let's jump into it. Let's do this short summary real quick, and we'll go into the wiki dive shortly after. A disgraced internet personality tries to win back his followers by live streaming himself at an abandoned haunted house. When he eventually unleashes a vengeful spirit, his comeback event becomes a fight for his life. Okay. It's going to be hard for me not to just dive into it without having the structure of the wiki plot. So let's jump right in, shall we? The film centers on Sean, a YouTube personality known for releasing videos purportedly centered on his various fears. Prior to the start of the film, one of Sean's videos resulted in the hospitalization of a homeless man and the loss of all of his sponsors and much of his fan base. Desperate to regain his popularity and retain his sole sponsor, Sean agrees to live stream himself spending the night in Death Manor, they love this word, purportedly haunted house where several people have died. If he leaves the house, he forfeits the sponsorship. So one of Sean's first tasks on reaching the house is to eliminate any chance he could easily escape. After setting up his cameras, he tells his viewers about the house's history. It is supposed to have been haunted by the ghost of Mildred Pratt, the daughter of a wealthy Mormon man and failed poet, who committed suicide after her paramour's sudden death. Stories claim that the deaths are a result of her trying to build a family she was unable to have in life. Film starts off, you see a lot of you see the very, very YouTube-esque style of him sitting in front of a camera being like, guys, whatever. You can definitely tell he's trying to target towards like the child audience of like, you won't believe what I did this week. I'm knocking out my fears. I'm gonna fake drown myself. And this is one of the controversial things that kind of gets him in hot water. One of the videos he does is getting snuck through the border or something like that, where he hops in the back of somebody's car and it looks like they're just doing donuts on a dirt road, and he's just getting thrown around in a trunk. That's one of the ones that gets him canceled. And there's another one where he fights a homeless man and eventually hospitalizes him. He loses all of his sponsors and he's getting ready for this big comeback. Whenever he first approaches the house, they do an excellent job of explaining why he can't leave, and it even shows him whenever he first gets there, he's like, I'm doing this to prevent myself from leaving, and he takes the spark plugs out of his car, throws them into the woods, and begins to go into the house. Once he enters the home, he then padlocks the front door and then drops the key down a grate. So once again, really, he keeps saying he's doing this for himself because he knows what he'll eventually end up he will eventually end up doing, which is, as soon as he starts to panic, begin to try to get out of this as fast as he can. It also does a really neat thing where he goes through several rooms in the house while explaining the story to us because he's researched it beforehand, instead of giving a lot of like weird reads, like a forced narrative. Instead of giving us a forced narrative, it gave us much more of a reason why we know what's going on, which is great, which is what you should do in found flicks like this. Now, this found flick definitely didn't have the amount of funding that it could have had to really make this a top-notch scary movie. This is definitely filmed towards horror comedy, and it hit some of the marks like right on. But as he goes through several of the rooms in the house, he begins to put up GoPros in the corner of every room, and you can see he puts one up. He'll sit on his tablet, he'll type out the name of the room, he lets the audience know, and he's live streaming it the entire time. He's even reading certain comments throughout the show to show that he's live. He's getting a couple of mean comments like This is boring, stuff along those lines. He's setting up cameras in every room, and he's saying that they're all motion captures. So whenever you would see the stream jump from his face to, say, the bathroom or the bedroom, you would assume that there's motion there. I wasn't able to pick up on a lot of the motions, but apparently some of the live streamers were actually, or one of the viewing audience was able to find it. You'll get lots of these things through the film where, oh my gosh, I found a ghost at 3:28. And it's like, what is that? And they'll start posting like screen grabs of the stream, and you'll see like a faint figure, stuff like that. But yeah, it actually hit everything else on the like. It actually hit everything else I wanted, that I needed to talk about. It's pretty much. When he first enters the house, he enters the room, the master bedroom, to where one of the ghosts that pertains into that room is the corner man. Apparently, all people were able to hear him say is, "The pond is still." It's just something that they would just kind of throw out there as like, "Well, there's a ghost in here. We heard this," and he shows a couple of examples from past ghost hunts, from like ones from 1990 and ones are a little bit later on. And it shows these guys not feeling very well, and you can play it in the background that you can hear mama, and you can hear the pond is still, or something along that line. I thought they did an excellent lead into this. Like, you automatically, a YouTuber that's like this, of just like, hey guys, just over the top for every single thing. And he catches himself swearing. He's like, no, I can't lose my sponsors. I think you should do like a 3-strike rule there, Livid. I think it's, starting with my next one. I meant shoot. And so you can, anytime he gets scared, you can hear him trying to censor himself, which is great, which is like, it's really clever how they did that. We'll jump to the next paragraph. Shortly after his arrival, Sean discovers a symbol hanging in the closet in the room. He finds a room in the house that's known as the safe room. No one's ever been found dead in it. There are no reported ghost sightings in this room, so he's going to set up his main base, set his laptop up, and he eventually wanders his way into a closet, where he finds a picture of what seems to be like a hand. I want to say it's like this, or something along those lines. Freaks out, what is this? Of course, having to center it in the camera, being super extra about everything, kind of throws it in the floor like it doesn't mean anything to him. He also investigates the house and deliberately attempts to provoke the spirits with a seance. It's not necessarily true, because he has a wheel of bad ideas. I think he calls it. It's pretty much things to like spice up the live stream if he feels like it's going kind of poorly, and he spins it for the first time, and it's a seance. So that is why he does it. He doesn't want to, but it's something that he has planned for the recorded evening. Sean and his viewers experience some supernatural phenomenon, and he shuts himself in the room. He hears noises, but they are revealed to be Chrissy, a fan who traveled to the house and meet him. Not necessarily correct, also not a sentence. So he's freaking out. He's hearing sounds on top of the roof, and he's hearing what can only be described as like loud thuds and like harsh wind blowing. And eventually they do a great jump scare of just, he's putting himself against the wall as he hears heavy footsteps in the hallway, and Chrissy, this thin woman, is like, oh my gosh, you're Sean. I'm so excited you're here. That's awesome. She pretty much showed up to meet one of her favorite YouTubers and has startled him, and he's not happy about it. He throws a poll out to his viewers. That should she stay? Like, his sponsors agreed to just being him staying in the haunted house alone. He throws it out, and he's got like 4 million people watching, which is an insane amount for any live stream ever. But the poll is definitely in her favor. She seems to be a lot more courageous than he is. Of like, anytime, because originally when he first walks into the house, he says, if there's something scary, I have to go investigate it. That's my rule. And anytime he tries to cower out of it, the entire audience is just pretty much shouting, it's your rule, you have to go investigate it. Which is another good way to push forward, like, why would anyone go and check that out? That is how you die in horror movies. He's like, well, I had a rule, and there you go. He initially tries to make her leave, but is then persuaded to let her stay to please his viewers. They investigate more of the house and cause more supernatural phenomenon to occur. via provocation. Eventually, they find like a back area in the closet that he was originally in, and it kind of leads down. I think it was there. It might have been another location that finds like a book from Mordred. I think that was her name. Mildred. Sorry. Mildred's book that has some poetry in it. And the crowd, after a little bit, starts to get a little kind of like bored of the subject and like telling him to spin the wheel again. He spins the wheel and it lands between two. Chrissy, who's been very like forward of like, we have to do stuff to please the audience. Like we have to do the scary things. And I think since it's landed between two, I think that's the ghost trying to tell you to do both. He's like, okay. Pretty much during the seance, Chrissy convinces Sean to read Latin as a part of a ritual intended to put the ghost to rest. Shortly after that, after he finished reading it, he's getting more and more freaked out and angry that she's like trying to steal his viewership or something like that. And you can tell like this devilish grin kind of jump across Chrissy's face as he's telling her to leave and get out of here. And she attacks him. She bites the side of his neck. He's freaking out. He grabs a small piece of wood, jabs it into the side of her head. And he's like, oh my God. Yeah, I killed somebody. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I need to call the police. I need to turn myself in. Yeah, he manages to fend her off, seemingly stabbing her to death with a jagged piece of wood, only for her body to disappear. Via his investigation of the house, it reveals that Chrissy was actually Mildred Pratt. Throughout the live stream, the viewers are sending in some of their own like homemade videos, and one of which is this young boy like pretty much saying, hey, this is used in a lot of faiths such as Judaism, Christianity, and stuff like that. That thing you found in the closet is called, and I don't want to mess it up, it's called a Hamza. One viewer lets him know that it's a Hanza and it's to protect the house from evil spirits. A little while later, another person sends in a video seemingly having found the original housekeeper for one of the groups. It's an older woman, and she's pretty much saying like, yeah, back in my day, I made a Hamza, and it's in the closet, and everything should be fine. You should be perfectly safe. And her son lets her know, it's like, oh, he destroyed that. Oh, he's dead. He's definitely dead. Like, it's such good comedic timing of just like, oh, you should be perfectly fine. Oh, he's dead. He is so dead. It's really good comedic timing. But so it's giving us story through other people besides our narrator, which is great. It's really good. Some sleuthing by his viewers finds that the symbol he destroyed earlier was a Hamza created by a housekeeper to protect against evil, and that the ritual he performed was actually a sacrificial one. Sean is attacked again by Chrissy/Mildred and other supernatural entities, and he realizes that the attacks and deaths were not done to create a family, but to create an audience for her poetry. So pretty much, Chrissy/Mildred just wanted to be an influencer. Thus why she's trying to, like, I guess, attack this YouTuber that's in her house. There's one scene in the film where she's attacking him, and it's literally, she's smashing his head into the wall or the ground. You can't really tell because it's all found footage. And she's smashing. She said, "Be sure to smash that like button, Sean." It's just like, gross. So gross. Anyways, he eventually tries to find his way out of the house. The viewers remind him that there's an upstairs window that he found that was open, so he could jump out of it. He jumps out of it, messes up his leg. Those viewers let him know you should definitely clean your leg, so he does that. It's like kind of you can definitely tell they're fishing for a little bit more time to make it a found film or make it a film. He makes his way to his car. He starts to begin to look for spark plugs that he threw out there. He finds one a little bit further on. He begins to reach for one, and like a lizard style hand kind of reaches out at him. He freaks out. He runs to his car. He hides in the car. No, he doesn't hide to the car yet. He runs back out in front of the house where a police officer is waiting because he's been telling his live stream to please call the cops. I'll give you the exact address. Just please call the cops. I'm gonna die here. And a police officer walks up and he's kind of like, I've been watching your stream. And that's immediately his red flag of like, oh no. And sure enough, the guy's a bad guy and tries to attack Sean. Sean is freaking out, runs to the car, and he's trying to look for like a weapon. and he remembers in one of his old videos he had a potato gun, and he says, "Tater launcher," or something along those lines. And he has no potatoes. What is one to do with a potato gun without any potatoes? So he finds like a bobblehead of his, to which he's gonna shoot out into this cop. The cop, some of the makeups, they don't have the funding for it, so it's gonna be a very B film style monster. And he's kind of like sludging against the window of the car as he falls out the back end of it, trying to buy himself some time as he's spraying it with like a Pam to make sure it'll fly out. He's packaging it in there, kind of trying to pump this gun. As the cop walks up, he just fires straight through him, and you see this kind of not even middling, kind of low quality monster kind of fall onto it and fall through it as he kind of begins to freak out that he did it, he killed it. There's no other spark plug, so he's still stuck here. Yeah, he makes his way back into the house. There's another good scare I'll throw out here because it's still kind of in the same time frame. He goes into one room. Before he leaps out the window, or maybe after, I don't remember. It's a quick movie. It's an hour 30 on the dot almost. I think it's hour 27. And he finds a boy sitting there crying. He tries to give it a toy, and the boy turns, and he has like another being on the front of it, and he says nope and books it out of that. While he's panicking, I think the first time with Mildred, I'm sorry I keep jumping all over the place, but this is how my brain works. It was like, oh yeah, funny. There were some good scares, and let's talk about those. Another one that was good, he's sitting in a closet freaking out, talking to his stream, trying to like figure out what he should do, when he's noticing weird movement beneath him as he looks down, and Christy's head is just right in his crotch, and she says he's guilty because he's been trying to plead to his stream that he didn't mean to, he didn't know he was going to hospitalize the homeless guy, so on and so forth. And she just opens her mouth and bites him on the dick. It's just like, whoa, okay. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. Let's dive into the final paragraph. Once again, this is a very short synopsis. He ultimately decides to use the ritual Mildred, keep doing that, to use the ritual Mildred had been using to trap people and gain a following against her. He initially attempts to complete the ritual. His initial attempt to complete the ritual is unsuccessful until he realizes he must make a sacrifice of flesh. Sean then cuts off one of his fingers, which completes the spell and pulls Mildred into a vortex. However, before Sean can celebrate, he is surrounded by the house's remaining spirits as his live stream is cut out. That pretty much nails a lot of it. Like, once again, a lot of the makeup and a lot of those, you can definitely tell if they were going for, like, this is supposed to be a kid's YouTube video, they nailed it. If that's what they were going for. If they're trying to scare adults, they're not nailing it. But it's definitely a solid B film. Like, it's there for humor, and they do well with humor in it. I can't think of any other really actual good scares. It's jump scare heavy, so if you know a friend that's gonna freak out at jump scares, there's like 4 maybe in the entire film, but I think they do a good job with it, with what they had. I can only assume that they didn't have a ton of, there's not even a lot on it really. But yeah, I haven't thought about the scores yet, so I might take a second here. I think the overall plot, of course, has been done to death, and of course everything's now going to, this found footage is live streaming, this found footage is a YouTube video, blah 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 blah. So it's starting to kind of get beat to death. I think the plot can have a 6. I think a 6 for the plot is fine. Let's do scares next. Scares, I think, are only probably, like I said, none of this, it wasn't a scary movie at all. A jump scare got me, so I can give it a 2 because it mostly comes off as a comedy, and it really does. And it's not going to be like Dale and Tucker because there's no build up to a lot of it. A lot of it's like YouTube humor, 2022 humor. Like the entire thing is about a ghost that's wanting to be an influencer, so like, you can't really do much with that. Scares get a 2. The threat actually kind of pulls you in a little bit with it, so I can give it a 4, just because you can't take them seriously once the makeup and stuff's going. So if you're going into this with an actual like horror, these are my scores. If you're going into it for a good time, it's probably a little bit higher. Is this film for newbies? Yeah, I think it's definitely targeted towards newbies. I think it's definitely targeted towards children. I think he says fuck once, and I think he says, I know he says shit a couple of times, and he keeps freaking out that he says it because he doesn't want to lose his sponsors. Do I recommend this? I recommend it for a light-hearted horror night. I don't think, if you're not going into this film for scares, I was led astray thinking that it was a genuine scary movie. But that doesn't mean it's a horror. As a film as a whole, I enjoyed it. As a horror film, it was not what I was looking for. But as a film in general, I think it's a solid. Like, I think it's a solid B movie. I don't know. Maybe they put like 10 grand into it just on GoPros alone. So I think they did good with what they had. Total score. Unfortunately, I'm not going to give it a very high score. I did enjoy this film, but it was not scary. It was not a scary movie. I'll give it like, what does it put it at here? Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 9.5. Shudder gives it a 4.3 out of 5. Shudder has a strange rating system to where people who love bad horror will also watch it and rate it highly. So, IMDb gives it 6.8 out of 10. That's generous, but they're looking at it as a film as a whole and not a horror movie. 92% of people like this movie, which is good. I think as a horror movie, for horror movie month, I think it's mediocre. As a film in general, I think it's good with what they could do with it, but I think for me personally, I'll probably give it it's a B horror. That's what's bothering me. I'll give it a 4.5, but not because I want to look at it as a movie as a whole. Right? Not due to the bad practical effects that they had to do, be due to low funding, not due to the cringiness of a main character just because he's trying to be a live streamer. I think 4.5 is still good. It's good for it. I can give it a 5 because I genuinely enjoyed the movie, but it's just, I wasn't afraid at any point in time. I was laughing throughout it. It didn't take itself seriously, which makes it better. I'd give that a 6. I'd actually go up pretty high with this. I'm going to give it a 6 in the category of it's a B horror movie with low funding. And I know I've hit that lick for a minute now, but I think for what it was and what it was given, it did a good job with it. And that is what I'll say about Deadstream. If you enjoyed Deadstream, be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you want to hear more of these, I still have several more to do. I still have several more to do today to catch up due to a very, very busy weekend. I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Stay scared. See ya.